Screen share. Okay. All right. Let me get rid of this thing here. Okay. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm going to go ahead and open with a word of prayer as we begin our presentation. Okay. Our Creator and our Father who art in heaven, we give thanks to you for the goodness of life. We give thanks to you for health and strength. We thank you, Father, that you have made it to where we can know that health is not a mystery, but it is by design. You made our bodies, you fashioned us in your image and likeness, and you've given us the responsibility to care for the temple intelligently. Help us now as we study this matter on health, calcium, and our health. Thank you. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
All right, so we are talking about low calcium, no health. That's a bold statement because there are so many different modalities, so many different uh, aspects to health, so many different ways at which people go about seeking to obtain health and wellness. And I'm here to tell you that there can be no health restored without calcium or when the body has low calcium, regardless of what clinic you've been to, the Mayo Clinic, whatever clinic, or whatever institution. The missing factor is the role that calcium plays in everyone's health, or simply put, the role that calcium plays in the health of every cell in our bodies. All right, so that's where we are going. Let's look at it. Let's consider it. Of course, this is our periodic table of element. We are familiar with it back from school days. Calcium, Ca. All right. And it is one of about 110 or more different elements. 84 of these is necessary for the health of man. When we become deficient in one or more of these 84, then our chemistry is thrown off and different health challenges will result. Are you all hearing me okay? Okay.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, very good. Very good. Now, calcium is unique. It is a special mineral, one of three. Calcium is what we call an anionic mineral or alkaline mineral. And there are two others who share that role. Of all the 84, of all the 110 or more minerals that are recognized, the others are potassium. Potassium is also an alkaline mineral. And the next one is chlorine. All right, chlorine. These three are the only anionic minerals, and they can do a lot in our bodies. They're very necessary. We are focusing in on the calcium. And as we think about the matter of calcium, we are considering a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of science, if you may, because I want for you to get it so that you be not tossed to and fro with the opinion that calcium is not necessary. You got enough calcium, just go about, try to get your copper, try to get your zinc and your selenium and so on and so forth. All right? So on the pH scale, we have 0 to 640, which in the body is the norm. 640 is our neutral when it comes on to the body chemistry, and this is based upon the scientific work of Dr. Carrie A. Reams, known as the Reams biological theory of ionization, and he gives credit to the creator for this equation for these numbers. So anything below 640 is considered cationic, or you would call it acid. Okay, above 640, we through to 14 pH, we're talking about pH, we think about calcium. Calcium is your major nutrient. Calcium is your major nutrient that controls the pH scale. 14 is pure calcium. Okay. Beneath that, we have the cationic elements. And what I want to point out here is that with the cationic elements, we're looking at one ion or one electron in the core and several other electrons proper term, in the outer shell. And those electrons in the outer shell for the cations are rotating in a counterclockwise direction, whereby those in the anionic side are rotating in the clockwise direction. So this is the chemical scientific way to determine whether something is alkaline or whether they're acid. The rotation of the electron is what determines that. So it's not just by putting a pH meter in a solution and it reads low. That's a secondary, and there are exceptions to that situation there. So we have calcium, potassium, and chlorine. These are all anionic elements. All right, and so now when we look at this situation here, lemons are also anionic, interestingly. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, again, this illustrates that hydrochloric acid, it's hydrochloric acid, but it's an anionic substance. It should actually be called hydrochloric base because, again, the electrons in that molecule rotate clockwise. And this is where lemon juice comes in. Lemon also, the electron in the finished cell of the lemons rotate in a clockwise direction. So lemons are nature's natural hydrochloric acid. This is just a point to be noted as we move on in our presentation. Okay, now, so what we're going to talk about is calcium. But before we do, let's look at the organ composition. what makes up our body. When we consider a man or woman 20 years old, 5 feet tall, 100 pound, 98.6 degree Fahrenheit, with a reserve energy of 100. This person is in perfect health, has all 84 minerals in their body. Nothing is deficient. This person is in great health. Now, we're going to use the perfect person to give you these numbers and values which are accurate. In this 100-pound person, there is, of course, 11,360 grams. That's their weight. 75 pounds of that is water. That is 8,520 grams of this 100-pound person in perfect health is water. 25 pounds or 2,840 grams is minerals. That's the amount of mineral would be in a 100-pound person in perfect health with the other description I gave. All right. Now let's look at the calcium composition in this person. Calcium is 60% of the total body weight of minerals. We said that was 25 pounds out of that 100 pound would be minerals. Now 60% of that total body weight would be mineral, which would be about 15 pounds or 6,816 grams. Already you're seeing that calcium, after all, is a majority of minerals in the body. And yes, that's the case. Now, the bones have the most calcium of all tissue. That's a fact. In fact, sometimes we tend to think that the bone is the only place that calcium resides. 33% of all the calcium in the body is in the bone. So the bone, it does carry its fair share of calciums. Now, the phosphate form of calcium is the most common calcium, which is largely the kind of calcium that's in the bone, the phosphate form. Now, when we look at soft tissue, the soft tissues of the body, a person similar, 100 pounds, in perfect health, 25 pounds is mineral. Mineral in the skeletal structure would be 26%. Minerals in the soft tissue would be 74%. All right? Now, the average dry weight of mineral levels in soft tissue are calcium is 54%. So 54% of that mineral in the soft tissue, your lungs, your brain, your all the soft tissues of the body outside of the bone, calcium is 54%. The next highest is your phosphate group, and then you have your potassium. Okay? Now, if you want to get a breakdown of the additional mineral content of the rest of the soft tissue, here we have it: nitrogen 8%, silicon 4%, iron 4%, carbon 3.4%, which is a variable, sulfur 3%, chloride 3%, benzene 2%. Benzene.
So the first one download, and I renamed it.
All right. Someone needs to mute.
So the topic
All right.
and the theme.
Benzene.
And now I'm downloading the second part 2 of that.
Okay. Can someone mute themselves, please?
That's what's happening here too.
All right. Okay.
Well,
so
I have to show you. This is what there was a lot of files that downloaded.
Sister Pamela.
I know that.
Sister Pamela.
I'm just trying to show you.
Please mute yourself. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Thank you. All right, so benzene, interesting, is a mineral for the feet and sinuses. All right. The trace minerals, notice trace elements, 2%, your arsenic, your iodine, your manganese, your magnesium, your molybdenum, zinc, hydrogen, etc., and your copper 0.5%. These are your trace. And in many circles, these are what we hear. You need to get your zinc, you need to get your manganese. I talk about manganese all the time because there would be no life without manganese, which is the element of life. Iodine, we can't do without it. All right? But just want to show you this here. We're focusing in on the calcium. So calcium is used more by weight and volume than all other minerals in biological life. Calcium is the king, as you see both in the hard structure and in the soft tissue. Calcium is king. All right? Now, it's important to note or to recognize that women need 5 to 7 times more mineral than men, and 80% of that is calcium. So women need more calcium than men. That's a recognized fact. All right? Now, there are 7 different kinds of calcium. There are 250,000 different types of calcium divided into 7 different groups or kind, 6 of which are necessary for biological life. 1 is toxic. So we have the calcium oxide, the calcium carbonate, tricalcium, calcium phosphate, calcium sulfate, and dolomite. So Dr. Reams studied all these food, 250,000 different types of food, and he tested them, and the different kinds of calcium, he rated them. Okay? So because there's so many different calciums and it's so important for our bodies, we need to have a wide variety in our diet. We easily get by with the food that we enjoy, the food we grew up with. We do not tend to naturally and normally widen our horizon and choose foods that I had not had before. We eat the food that we ate last week and the week before and the month before. That's where we stuck. The wider the variety, the more minerals and nutrients will be available to our bodies. And you see, these food have calcium. They got their share of calcium. Your green veggies, rich sources of calcium. Your chia seed. It's just amazing, friends. We've got to use variety in our diet. We need our calciums. When we think about calcium, we should recognize the pH of the body. To be able to relate to the role and work and function of the calciums in the body, we need to understand a little bit about acid and alkaline. Can we do that? All right, so another little bit of mind stretcher. We have once again a pH scale or scale 0 to 14. Above 640, we're going alkaline, more alkaline, which we call anionic. Less than 640, we have acid, or we call it cationic. It's interesting that the various groups of calcium, the two that's most dominant in affecting the pH, which the pH tells us is lacking, are the calcium sulfate or the gypsum types of calcium and the oxide form of calcium, Cal2. In another presentation, we're going to look at the food groups that contain the different types of calcium. So you're going to learn about the sulfate group. You're going to learn about the oxide group. I can tell you, like your citrus is, it's going to be your sulfate group of calcium in those. All right? Okay. Are we together so far? Pure sulfuric acid is 0, 0. That's the bottom of your pH scale. And at the top is pure calcium. All right? Pure calcium is a non-conductor of electrical energy because the electron speed is so slow, it's hardly moving, so it won't conduct electrical energy. Whereby, on the other hand, sulfuric acid, the electrons are moving at such a rapid speed that it increases the conductivity for electrical energy the more acid you go. All right? Another name for the calcium sulfate, in a practical term, you're going to see it and recognize it as calcium lactate. When we think about pH, we want to think about resistance. It's sort of like this group here of tug and war, military guys pulling against the other, Team A pulling against Team B. There is a certain amount of resistance being created. That's why they're not able to pull each other over the line. Now, when we consider this here, Team A, let's say they represent the acid group, Team B represent the alkaline group. If we have 100-part alkaline, 100-part acid, the ratio between acid and alkali is 1 to 1, which would be equivalent of 640. Perfect resistance, great resistance, and that's the 640 is a measure of the resistance. If you could measure the resistance in the pulling force, that's what the pH is. The pH is a measure of resistance between alkaline and acid in a solution or in our bodies. So when our pHs begin to go either direction, it's telling us that there's a dominance of either the alkaline group or dominance either of the acid group. Okay? So pH is a measure of resistance between alkaline substance and acid substance. pH is not a measure of volume, friends. Because of this here, you can have two substances with pH of 2.0. One, if you drink it, it's gonna bore a hole in your body, and it won't stop boring the hole until you get to some bony structure where it can be neutralized. And another substance, 2.0, you can drink it and nothing happens. It's sort of like distilled water. You say distilled water is low pH, 4 point something, and another substance may be 4, and you can't drink it. Because pH tells us nothing about the volume. It just simply tells us about the ratio between the acid and alkaline, and that's what gives the value. Okay? Are we together? All right, very good. Very good. Best resistance for our body chemistry is 640, not 7.0, as is in the regular chemistry. So here we have it, that 640 placed in the equation of perfect health with everything perfect, like that 100-year-old man or woman, which we use as our illustration. This would be their chemistry in perfect health. Everything is functioning just well. There's no excessive loss of energy, as can be seen in those numbers. All right? But due to mineral deficiency, we're focusing on calcium. When we become deficient in the necessary calciums, then problems develop. It's important to note that when we digest our food, then the energy particles from the food is carried to the liver. It is carried to the liver where it can be adjusted and be made to be available to the body based upon what the needs are. And it's important to note because our cells are all connected to a nerve. Nothing is an independent atom. So therefore, messages are communicated from each cell to the brain. The brain, if there's a cell that needs replacing, which they often do, it communicates that to the brain. The brain sends the program in for that cell in that organ. It sends it to the liver. The liver builds those amino acid structure and dumps it out in the bloodstream, and it is carried to that area of the body that need that particular nutrient. All right. So the pH drifts away from the perfect due to calcium deficiency. The greater the calcium deficiency, the weaker is the gastric juice, and there will be other minerals deficiency. Okay, so here's one of the things, the important factor. When calcium is deficient, it's going to affect the digestive juice. The pH is going to shift away either too acid or too alkaline. And that's going to be a problem because from the calcium deficiency, then you're going to get manganese deficiency, then we're going to get iron deficiency. And this is just one of the many different ways in which we become deficient in these other nutrients. Calcium is king. They got books written on the calcium factor. And this author did a great job in convincing the scientific world. I don't know if you can see it. Scientific Secrets of Health and Youth, The Calcium Factor by Robert R. Barefoot. I was going to give you a quote, but it's all right. Okay, so imagine with me as the pH goes low, less than 640, these are some primary and basic things that occur regardless of whose body it is in. Science has no respecter of persons. That is the lab. The chemistry has no respecter of person. So as the pH goes below 640, the resistance decreases, so therefore energy speed increases. Tissue density begins to be affected increasingly as the pH moves more acid. And we'll talk about that in some other time, but I want to show you that as it goes acid, electrons are moving so rapid that the digestive organs cannot even slow them down to pick them up, any more than the root of the plant in the soil is able to pick up those nutrients when the soil of the pH of the soil is excessively acid. We're just like the plants and the soil. On the other hand, when the pH begins to move up towards 14, remember 14 is a standstill. That's chemistry. So the resistance is increasing as our pH goes up above 640. So the electron speed also decreases, and on this side also tissue density begin to be affected. It is science, friends. We don't have to be respecters of names of what they call diseases. Chemistry tells the whole story of what's going on. Okay? So pure sulfuric acid there and pure calcium on the other hand. So as we become deficient in the calcium, which is usually the first groups, then our bodies begin to take minerals from the lung tissue. As the deficiencies continue, then it begins to pull minerals from the muscles. And the deficiencies continue, begin to pull minerals from the bones. That's the line that nature follows. Okay? Now, so let's say a person started out with great health, 640 over 640 on their pH, urine pH over saliva pH. In this case, they did well. Nothing abnormal occurred. That's to bring them from a 640 to a double acid in their life. The normal progression from perfect, the pH would normally go then to alkaline over alkaline, and then it moves to acid over alkaline as the deficiencies of calciums and other nutrients increase. And then it goes to alkaline over acid. And then finally one day it gets to double acid, acid over acid, indicating the greatest loss of energy is taking place. You can throw everything at the body. You can throw iron, you can throw zinc, you can throw everything at the body. You can throw the best diet at the body. But until this is reckoned with, the calcium deficiencies that are so excessive, then nothing else matters. It really doesn't. And there's a science to slowing down and allow the body to increase the energy and use the right calcium. So there's the example, alkaline over alkaline, acid over alkaline, alkaline over acid, and then a double acid situation. Friends, there can be no health without calcium. No cell will be formed without calcium. Nowhere in the body. Calcium is king. Okay? The pH drifts away from the perfect due to calcium deficiency. The greater the calcium deficiency, the weaker the gastric juice, and there will be other minerals. It's well worth repeating that statement. Lack of calcium is the primary cause of the degeneration of any organ in the body, and oxygen is a secondary cause. So the line of deficiency is calcium deficiency, which results in oxygen deficiency, and then comes deficiency of water. And we must recognize these. Once we recognize these, and we can intelligently correct the situations that exist. This is a nice quote at this point. This is a rule in the biological theory of ionization. We do not live off of the food we eat, but instead off of the energy from the food we eat. In other words, you eat the banana, but you're not living off of that banana. There has to be sufficient resistance, sufficient gastric juice to interact with that cationic food to release the energy. That energy is brought to the liver, and the liver repackage it so it can become flesh and bone once again. The food we eat is not just what goes in. We must have a strong gastric juice. So if you don't have a strong gastric juice, and we're eating a diet of food that are hard to digest, we're only, at best, what we end up doing is we end up using up our savings account, using up our reserve. We think, oh man, I feel great. I can keep running around. I can run circles around you. Not realizing that what you're doing, you're using up your reserve, and one day, someday, you're going to fall. You're going to drop so low, and all of a sudden the symptoms come out of what seemed to be nowhere. We must have a balance between our energies in and energy out. Okay? So this is where we went over that once again. The ideal is we want our pHs to be between 6.2 and 6.8, which would indicate the right calciums that are available to our body as we seek to zone in on the 640. Okay? Now, saliva pH is an indicator of the function of the liver and a direct indicator of the strength of the HCl, hydrochloric acid. So don't undermine that saliva pH at all. If your saliva pH is running acid, then, it's time to do something. It's time to do something a lot earlier than when your saliva pH start running acid. Okay, when it start running acid, you can't get your iron, you can't get your vitamin A, you can't pick up this nutrient, you can't pick up that nutrient, even though you throw it into your digestive organ, into your stomach by the truckload. You can't get it. What's making the difference? The calcium, friends. The further the saliva pH is away from perfect in either direction, the weaker the gastric juice. That's important. The weaker the gastric juice, the less able the body is to extract from the diet those minerals with a higher specific gravity. That is, those minerals such as manganese, some of your trace mineral, even iron with 54, manganese with 55, and your iodine with 126 on the atomic table. It requires strong gastric juice, and the weaker the gastric juice, so that's why these trace minerals are easy to become deficient, because they require stronger gastric juice. So therefore, while we only need a small amount of them, but that small amount is packed with energy, and when the pH is too weak, we won't get it. Okay? Now, it's important to note that, as I've often mentioned, the liver has to produce some 5 billion different enzymes or amino acid structure per day, 6 billion in a lifetime, which provides the raw material to every organ in the body for replacement of cells, provide the raw material to what we call the transformer gland to finish off the replacement of each cell that need to be replaced. It also manufactures our HCl, so that's why the saliva pH is closely connected there, and the bile. So when the pH of the saliva is off, way off, even the urine too, we're having a weakness in our ability to properly digest the food. Even if you don't have any digestive symptom, friends, the chemistry is straight. So in order for the liver to function and do its job efficiently, these are the things that it needs. Okay, water, oxygen, calcium, iron, iodine, and vitamin A. These are the major that our liver uses. That calcium, the king of all nutrient. You can't build good cell, you can't build healthy cell with a calcium deficiency affecting your body. Okay? All right? Now, this is what happens when we are deficient. The perfect cells are to be replaced about every 6 months, but when the perfect cells reach a certain stage and are scheduled for replacement, if the nutrients are available, then they will be replaced. They become delta cells, and if the nutrients are not there, then they continue to be retained in their location and become more larger, swollen up with moisture, until, because the nutrients are not coming, so naturally they break connection with the nerve and become dead cell. We call those omega cells. That's what will happen when those nutrients I just mentioned are lacking, because those are the major. So now, here is what typically happens. Here is what you may feel or experience as the pH drifts away from perfect. And typically, we don't go pH less than 4.8. Less than 4, less than 5, the person is rapidly moving out of here. Above 840, we don't go above 840. We get too close to that, it doesn't support life, it doesn't support the energy cycles. All right? So let's look at some of the things that would be occurring as we get more and more acid. So we're looking at 5.7, 5.6, 5. When we get into 5s, that's what I'm dealing with. I'm not talking about 4s. 4s, when we get into 4, we're dying. Okay? So as the chemistry goes further into the acid, our bones begin to ache because there are changes taking place in the bone. We begin to have leg crampings, muscle cramp. We call them Charlie horse. And typically as the chemistry moves in the acid region, close to the acid region at night, we get those a lot of times in the night hours, terrible muscle cramps. We see also as we get acid, bone mineral losses on the increase. They call those osteopenia, osteoporosis. Just wonderful name to suggest that the person is very, very deficient in calcium. And the pH meter tells the story. Anybody who is that acid below in their 5s have mineral deficiency, have bone mineral lost. In this situation, there would be low iron because they can't pick it up. So their physician may tell them they got anemia, some kind of anemia, or other disease condition. Low vitamin A, because in order for vitamin A to be available, you need iron, and it's not getting the iron, so it won't available. So deficiency symptoms relating to not only the iron, but the vitamin A, the blood-making organs will be affected. There will be low oxygen as well, friends. Poor digestion because that gastric juice is too weak. Typically, persons, as we get more acid, the bowel begin to be too loose, even though in some instances, coming from the other side, it can be really, really stopped up, but it was stopped up before, and the deficiency just continue, and now the deficiency brings them to a double acid, but they're still backed up. Okay? And what's the last one there? All right. Okay. Now, also, we have some additional things that shows up. If this is a woman, we're going to have a lot of irritability problem, nervous, hormonal issue, marital conflicts and issues. Nothing is ever right in the family. Everything, you look on the dark side of everything. Even the stars are shining, the sun is blooming, and you find some fault with the sun where it's not shining. The calcium deficiency affects our bodies to such an extent that it is, Dr. Reams found, to be the major causes of divorce. And when he got people in his retreat and he balanced their chemistry without any counsel, they go home and they live happily ever after, no divorce whatsoever. Calcium deficiency affects how we behave. It affects our emotion. It affects our outlook, friends. So husband, give your wife some calcium. That's the best investment that you can do if your wife is deficient. Now, on the other hand, husbands, you need the calcium as well. Yes, you do. Without the calcium, you're also nervous. You're also irritable. You also have hormonal problems. You also contribute to the marital conflict just as much as she does. But it's just that the way the Creator made the woman, they're more emotional. They're more their hormones are going up and down all throughout the month. So it's a little bit more technical, more difficult with them. Okay? But husbands, give your wife the right calcium, and you will have her for a long, long time to be with. Okay? Now, on the other hand, as the pH begins to move up towards the 14 mark, more alkaline, more alkaline. You know, you read the books and they say alkaline and you get rid of cancer, alkalinize your body and you get rid of this and you get rid of that. Friends, those are not true. You got to understand what's going on. Well, the more you alkalinize your body versus being acid, you're slowing down, you're lessening the loss of energy. Cancer is a situation where it's a mineral deficiency. There's not enough nutrients, so you're having a great and excessive loss of energy. So if you alkalinize your body, you're going to have some time to correct the situation, if you may. Okay? All right, so as we get towards 14, well, we don't go up towards 14. As we get closer to 8, that bowel is stopped up. As we get towards 14 and compared to being acid, the lung tissue, and mention about tissue density, lung tissue would be impacted. In both instances, both too acid and too alkaline, and so there go our oxygen deficiency problems. Because remember, I mentioned that the body will begin to take mineral from the lung tissue first. It has all 84 minerals, and then it moves to the muscle, and then it gets to the bone. Okay? So there would be lung congestion, resistance is increased, iron is also low because the gastric juice is still weak, your vitamin A is going to be affected. And by the way, vitamin A is necessary for the skin, for the blood, and for the eyes especially. Low oxygen will be a factor. Poor digestion is also a factor. In some of these instances, when the urine pH is pretty high, that food will just sit there in the stomach for almost days, and the person will say, but I don't feel hungry. I ate 10 hours ago and I still feel like I have the food in my stomach. Your digestion is very poor, and simply put, it's just not moving. So a person like that could easily, by putting some acid substance in their body, get to acidify the digestive organs so that things may move. All right? So we have also a vitamin C deficiency, as was on the other side. There's excessive vitamin C deficiency, and over here in the alkaline side, excessive vitamin C deficiency. But you can't typically just go to the store and buy acid vitamin C when you're already acid. Being as acid on the lower end and going and buying vitamin C and putting in it, just making you more acid, friends. So we can't believe everything we read in the textbook or in the book that this person write, because they got PhD and all kinds of accolades behind their names. The chemistry tells a story that does not lie. Okay? And there would be trace mineral deficiencies as well. So in these cases, as the pH drifts too far acid or too far alkaline, we're having major problem. We got water deficiency. These are the things the liver need in order to function. We're going to have calcium deficiency. It's clear. We're going to have oxygen deficiency. We're going to have deficiency of water, iron deficiency, iodine, vitamin A deficiency, and iodine deficiency, friends. Those cells in the body cannot function. They're just going to stay in their location and lose energy until finally they break connection with the nerve and become omega cells. And if you have a little bit of strength to move around, if you're in relatively good health besides, then it won't be as much a problem. The muscular movement of motion of life will help to push those omega cells out. But if you're a weak person, inactive person, then those dead cells collect in that location and they begin to press against each other. This is decaying flesh. That's what we're looking at. Decaying flesh, decaying tissue, rotten flesh, rotten tissue, and it has to develop all kinds of microorganisms, and your body form a protective coating around your body. Say, I gotta quarantine this thing so it don't affect me. It don't affect the other cells. So it quarantines it and it stays there and it continues to decay, and all kinds of microorganism continues to multiply from within. None of them has to come from outside. Once the terrain is appropriate, the microbes will evolve. We talk about pleomorphism, the evolution of microbes to bacteria, yeast, fungus, mold, which is the end result. And they tell you got cancer. So friends, I got a few suggestions of what can be done. Of course, this is our measuring rod. If this is your numbers, this would indicate bad news, bad shape, as you can see, but we're just focusing on the pH. But if you look at this person and that 6.62, they're just plainly not drinking water. Water is foreign to their system, and I won't tell you more, but the pH of 5.07 or 5.1 over 7.2, that's a split. And this is typical, the person that will have obvious digestive symptoms, burping, bloatedness, gas, especially if the sugar was in the low range. All right? But what can we do about this here? Let's see what we can do. That person would need to drink water. That's their first thing. But because we're focusing on the pH, you can do at least to check your pH if you are interested in finding out where you are. We suggest you check it between 10 and 5. During those times, those are best, with the limitation that you allow for at least 60 minutes to pass after a meal before checking it. All right? And once you do that, you're able to see something of what we talked about based upon this lecture. Okay? And these are the 7 groups, 7 different kinds of calcium. And the ones that have the greatest effect upon the pH are the oxide form of calcium, which would typically, you would see that as Cal2, and then the calcium sulfate, which you would see that name Cal-lactate. And those are the two that pretty much we use to supply the needed calcium while changing the pH to make it more so the body can accept the right nutrients. You also see Min-Cal there, which is your phosphate form of calcium. It's a colloidal compound. It is an amazing mineral with 66 other trace minerals in it, all in the phosphate form.
Peter?
That's the kind of calcium that goes to the bone, all right? We're
Peter?
winding down. Yes, sir.
I don't think are you sharing?
Yeah, I've been sharing my
Stop
screen.
sharing about 2 slides ago.
Okay, 2 slides ago. Okay, thank you.
I'm
All
seeing
right.
it. It's coming through for me.
Okay, it's coming through.
For some of us, I
Alright.
guess.
Is there anyone else that is not seeing the slides?
Could be internet connection locally.
Okay. Could be internet connection.
Locally, where the person
Local.
is.
Dr. Jim, let's see. Let me see if I can get this thing back.
Okay, if I'm the only one, then continue. I see you, but I don't see the slides.
Yeah, we're seeing the slides.
Okay,
Refresh, maybe.
Let's see. Let me get back up there. Okay, you're seeing the slides. Okay.
She ate a lot of rice. He actually ate pretty good.
Okay.
Does like rice. And he ate the carrots.
Okay. That's where we were.
She gave him the carrots.
Someone
I
needs
had to eat their peas.
someone needs to mute Sister
Mr.
Charmaine.
Shaman.
Oops.
Okay. All right, we're almost finished now anyway, Dr. Jim. All right, so one of the solution is, okay, we understand getting the pH, get the right calciums, and it's important to know calcium gluconate is a neutral form of calcium that will help to raise the calcium level so that the body will be able to get some of the other calciums. So calcium gluconate is the easiest form of calcium to digest, all right? Okay, and I think about Daly's calcium gluconate. So we want to use a variety in our diet. Eat foods that are easy to digest. So many times, because we have teeth in our mouth, we think we can eat anything. But friends, that's not the case. You can eat it, but you're not getting the energy from it, and it may just be making you sicker and sicker. If you feed a sick person with the diet for a healthy person, you're only going to make the sick person sicker and sicker by the day. So we need to match our food to the strength of our gastric juice, and that will do us better. It will enable us to increase our energy. You see what I'm saying? Okay, that's important. So we like to go nuts on nuts, right? Nuts are good. You read the book, they say nuts are great, almond is great. But friends, if you have a poor digestion, you're not getting the stuff you're supposed to get from that almond. See what I'm saying? So there are factors we need to consider. We also need to conserve on energy, because if the energy loss is so great and people try to be going and going and going and not resting, it's like having $2,000 in the bank and decide that I'm just gonna write check. I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna buy this for $200. I'm gonna buy that. I like that. I'm gonna buy this for $1,500. I'm gonna buy that for $800. Pretty soon you're running out of energy. In order to regain one's health, people must slow down. That's why with Dr. Reams, when the people come to his retreat, he put them on bed rest for the first segment of his program. All they do is lay down in bed and drink their fluids and follow the program so they can gain energy. I know we torture more people by just getting them to rest than doing anything else. And it's interesting that's why it's very difficult to do a program in your own house, because there's 1,001 things that need to be done, and we feel guilty for stopping when all that work need to be done. But if you're trying to build health, friends, you've got to tailor your energy expenditure to the efficiency of your digestive organ, or you will just continue to lose energy and getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Not to mention going to bed at the appropriate time. Just mention how you're spending your energy during the day. Okay? And lastly, we need to use a variety of foods in our diet so we can have the wider variety of minerals and nutrients and calcium. Okay? And don't forget, the humble lemon is the only anionic food Known to man, Dr. Reams found the only anionic food that has its electron rotating in a clockwise direction is lemon. So lemons is one of those things that Doc used to really help the people to get well at the fastest possible rate, drinking lemon juice, lemonade, or lemon water all throughout the day while resting. And nature works speedily and rapidly to build some 5 billion different amino acids as they try to move back towards health. Okay? Another tool that would be beneficial, as I've talked about this in a few lectures, is the X39 patches. These are excellent for the reason that they activate the liver, for the reason that they get our liver, a 60-year-old liver, to act like a 20-year-old liver. And the liver is the one that's making all those 6 billion different amino acids per day to make, in a lifetime, 5 billion in a day, to make us well, friends. So this is the greatest thing I've seen in terms of technology to help our health. Really, for real, I'm serious about this, okay? So don't underestimate the power of wearing those pads. Another way you can do that and get the benefit is go outside, sit in the sun, stay in the sun for 12 hours during the day if you got 12 hours of sunshine, and that same light will activate the GHKCU pathways in your body, which activates your liver and help your liver to produce and function well like it's young once again. Okay, that's my theory. It hasn't been proven, but it's the same. The patches simply reflect the natural light. I think that's UV light. What kind of light, Cass? Ultraviolet light. One of those light. It reflects back internally, and that reflected light simply activate the GHKCU copper peptides, and which stimulate the liver. I've done lectures on that, so you can read about that. Also, the milk thistle is famed for an excellent herb for the liver. So do not underestimate the power of milk thistle, or in some combination, you have different formulation with different liver formula. We need to do something, anything, something for our liver, friends. Our liver is always working. All right? So let's support the liver. We don't have to wait until we have a tumor here or a tumor there, we get sick here, we get sick there. The wise man foreseeth evil coming and hideth himself. And so we should take every precaution to support the organs and tissues of the body that matters most. All right? You with me? Okay, so having gone over this pathway, it is safe to say that we cannot have health with low calcium. Nobody can. You can climb around the mountain, you can follow this program or that program. At the end of the day, if your health is going to have any lasting power, you got to work with the calcium. Calcium first, friends, and everything else will fall into line. Is that clear? I'd like to open up for some questions. I've covered quite a bit. And let me hear from you. Do you have any question about anything that I've shared? All right, let me read of this, remove the screen.
Yes, mud.
Yes, go ahead with your question.
No, I said clear as mud.
Okay, clear as wood. All right.
Mud.
Mud.
Okay, clear as mud, Sister Charlotte. Thank you. All right.
My question. Yes, I had a question about the X39.
Yes.
What did you feel when wearing them? Like, what should I expect to feel? Because when I wore them, I didn't feel any difference.
Okay. How long did you wear it?
A week. Well, not one. I mean, one 24 hours, and then I took that one off and I replaced it after 12 hours.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Now, when your doctor give you medication, how long they give it to you for?
I don't take any medication.
Okay, you don't. You take supplements?
No,
You don't take supplements.
I
Wow.
have the protein shake
Protein
and,
shake.
and I take greens. So there's a product from
Greens.
Arbonne called Be Well Greens, and it has the highest
Okay.
calcium in it.
Okay, very good. But essentially, to answer your question, um, some people feel something immediately in the first day, because I did that when I first started wearing it. But the company recommends you wear it for one one month for every 10 years of life.
Mhm.
Wearing it for one day, or or for a week, or for a month, you may or may not feel any difference, depending upon what all need to be fixed in your body. Your liver, your brain determines the priority order that things need to be rectified or fixed. So you may think, you need the skin to look great and wonderful, but your brain may be telling you that kidney is fixing to fall off the planet. We
Okay.
need to fix it, okay? So give it some chance. This is the best thing I've seen in all technology for to support our health. It just has just amazed me. It's still blowing my mind. Any other question? Thank you for that question.
You're welcome.
Friends, where are your questions? It's either that the
Yeah.
teacher hasn't taught.
Hello and good evening to everyone.
Good evening, Sister Eastland.
Yes, I could you give a little more explanation on the lemon because I was from the fact that I do biological ionization, I wanted you to if you could give a little more explanation as opposed to when and when not to use the lemon because you don't want to just say use the lemon and there's a category and a specificity to the use of the lemon.
Okay. Typically, in a lecture like this here, I make sure I don't give enough information for people to go and start using the lemon inappropriately. But people can typically use lemons. They generally squeeze it in some water in the morning and drink the lemon. That's to the extent that most people use lemon. Now, those who do the biological ionization, as what I just discussed, we use, according to your body weight, a certain amount of lemon to distill water, 1:9 ratio. And whether the sugars are low or high determine whether we put sweeteners in it and make it lemonade. Of course, so anyone outside of that understanding would not be necessarily using the lemon like you and I think about using lemon. But generally, if you have weakened kidneys, that's not a time to use it the way we use it, because it's all day long. Did that help? Without,
Yes, yes it
You,
did. Yes it
you-
did. Thank you.
you're saying it needs to be taken all day long.
yeah, that's what we
Okay.
do. The liver works in a cycle. And when we start at 8 o'clock in the morning, we go all the way to 6 o'clock drinking lemon juice every hour on the hour and distill water on the half an hour. So we're building and we're cleansing, we're building and flushing. Okay? Let me see if we have questions in the chat. Any more questions? Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, the patch is really good. Okay. All right. The person asked the question. All right. So if there's no more question, we will conclude, stop the recording, and and then you can ask your question that you did not ask.